term Ashley Walk is misleading because it is not a walk at all, but a term used to describe an administrative area like a parish, in this case an area of the New Forest used as a testing ground for high explosives during World War II. Perhaps with secrecy in mind, the term was never changed. Most people have heard of the German battleship Bismarck, but she also had a sister ship, the Tirpitz, that was sunk in a Norwegian fjord by the RAF in November 1944. The bombs that sank the Tirpitz and saved Allied sailors on the northern convoys were tried and tested at the Ashley Walk bombing range. Little remains of the bombing range, yet from these clues it is still possible to recognise the role Ashley Walk played during the Second World War. A good starting point from which to get your bearings is the Fighting Cock's pub, still popular today at God's Hill on the road between Fordingbridge and Cadnam. Personnel for the bombing range were billeted in huts opposite the pub, and close by was the main entrance to the site where a sentry box once stood. The range was in two parts. The practice range, which had a diameter of 2,000 yards, this was used for dropping inert bombs up to a height of 14,000 feet. This range could be used either by day or night. If night bombing was required, the targets could be lit by a diesel generator. This range was controlled by a tower located at Hampshire, which was known as the main practice tower. Today, located near to the foundation of the main practice tower, are the remains of the large white concrete direction arrow, which points towards Le Gutter, where the illuminated target was located, and cast concrete light boxes may still be found. The second part bombing range was known as the high explosive range. This was controlled by the North Tower, located near the Fordingbridge Road. The high explosive range could be used to a height of 20,000 feet for dropping ordnance. It was similar in construction to the main practice tower on Hampton Ridge, and flat panels remain associated with the tower's direction arrow. The line target is still evident today. It was used to trial different techniques, ordnance and equipment used to attack railway tracks and roads. Strafing runs as well as dropping bombs were used and tested on this target. It consisted of a 10-foot wide line, 2,000 yards in length, and ended with a white marked cross or bullseye with arms of 100 yards in length. Today the target in its early stages resembles a long straight footpath cutting across the range. There were also 3 wall targets. Number 1 wall target was 40 foot wide and 40 foot high and constructed of 9-inch reinforced concrete. Number 2 wall target was the same size and was built on a 9-inch concrete base, which was 200 yards in diameter. From an aerial view, this target is surrounded by a series of concentric circles, which were formed by bulldozing away the topsoil to reveal the bleached gravel. These circles were used to provide a guide to impact distances. Number 3 wall target was different. It was 8 feet 10 inches high, 6 feet thick, and 20 feet long. The wall was faced with 2 inches of armour plate. In August 1943, the number 3 wall was extended in length by 90 feet to allow testing of the upkeep bouncing bomb. This is a bomb that was used during the famous Dam Buster raid. This target now appears only as a long, low mound of earth, with bushes growing on it. The ship target, as the name suggests, was designed to represent a ship, and was located on flat ground at Cockley Plain. It had a huge vertical steel face, intended to represent the hull side of a merchant ship, and was constructed in a similar way from steel plates and heavy angle iron girders. The remains of this target are still visible in the form of a concrete base and some concrete foundations with metal bolts still in place. 2 areas on the range were set aside for the testing of fragmentation bombs. These areas were marked in chalk with their designated letters A, B, C or D, so they were visible from the air. Sites A and B were located near Oldham and Bottom. The area was used to test dispersal areas and the protection they could afford aircraft from fragmentation bombs. A number of aircraft pens were constructed in line with the design that was used by the Luftwaffe. Sites C and D were located on the east of Cooper's Hill. This area was used to test fragmentation bombs against surface targets such as trenches and command posts. All of the letters A, B, C and D can still be seen on the ground, although you may need a GPS device to find them. The remaining features which still can be detected on the landscape today include the concrete structure known locally as the U-boat submarine pen. The ministry responsible for civil defence was tasked with building an air raid shelter to test its performance. It consisted of a massive slab of concrete 6 feet thick by 79 feet by 70 feet and was supported by 5 6-foot high walls on foundations 20 inches thick. The outer walls were over 3 feet thick. The inner walls were 1 foot 9 inches. It proved to be almost indestructible, and after the war it was covered over with earth, and so it remains to this day, with sections of concrete showing through in parts where the soil has been eroded. It may surprise some that the government is still developing bomb shelters, although it remains a sensitive topic, and the local description of a sub-pen was probably not changed because it was better to have the public believe construction was for offensive rather than a defensive purpose. The Grand Slam was a 22,000-pound high-explosive deep penetration bomb, also designed by Barnes Wallis. Due to limited production and testing time, the first test of this bomb used a live Grand Slam. Frank Meiserkoff, a boffin and colleague of Barnes Wallis, took responsibility as the bomb aimer on the first test of Grand Slam at Ashley Walk.
Among the things I started when I got there was tackling the U-boat menace, and the best weapon for this was Grand Slam, which was a 10-ton development by Barnes Wallis from the design of Tall Boy, which he had done to successfully bomb the Tirpitz. I had, of course, worked out the ballistics of Tall Boy when I did the tests on it at the aircraft RAE's bombing range. And therefore I had that data from which to estimate what the ballistics would be of a 10-ton version, which was much bigger.
Camera and observation positions were installed to observe and record the tests. The only surviving World War II structure on the range is one of these brick-built observation shelters near Amberwood. As part of the New Forest Remembers World War II project, a new information panel about the range was added. The crater formed by the Grand Slam created a pond which is now used by New Forest ponies as a watering hole.